The pepper jar clinked and rolled to the threshold like a dare. A key scraped the lock. His voice slipped through. "Open up, Cass." Her phone buzzed. Micah's text, "Say the true sentence now," as the knob began to turn. Before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe, tap like, and share this video. The more voices we reach, the louder these stories become. And drop your city in the comments. Let's see where love finds us. Rain threaded down the stairwell window, turning the hallway into a slow-moving aquarium of city lights. Cassidy Vance tugged her sweater closed and opened her apartment door halfway, enough to catch the warmth rolling off the paper bag in the stranger's hands. He wore a navy cap, rain bright on the brim, and a jacket with the restaurant's logo stitched over the heart. His name tag said Micah. "Delivery for Cassidy," he said. His voice was gentle, steady, like he knew how to set down a heavy thing without breaking it. She nodded, swallowed. The smells hit her. Garlic, ginger, caramelized edges, chili peeking through. She was a thick, curvy, undeniably sexy white woman who had learned the hard way to become small in all the ways that didn't show up on a scale. Her ex had been the kind of man who measured love by restraint. Don't eat that, don't wear that, don't want so loud. He was gone, but his rules still floated around her life, ghost labels on every desire. Micah lifted the bag slightly. Pad thai, chicken satay, mango salad, and water, no ice. Cassidy wet her lips. She leaned closer, kept her voice low, like the walls might snitch if she spoke full volume. "I need extra sauce," she whispered. His eyes flicked up, warm, curious. There was no smirk, no judgment, just attention. He glanced into the bag, then back at her door, at the way she was half hidden in the hinge's shadow. "You want extra peanut sauce, or extra everything?" She almost laughed, almost cried. "Peanut, and maybe the chili lime for the salad, if you have it." "I brought some," he said, surprising her, and reached into the deep pocket of his jacket. He held up 2 small containers, then a third. "We were out in the rack, but I keep a stash. People never ask until after the driver's gone. Figure I can be the kind of person who says yes." A drop of rain clung to his lower eyelashes and stayed there, stubborn, a tiny bead of storm refusing to fall. Cassidy's fingers brushed his as she took the sauces. Her skin sizzled with the simple human contact. She hated that something so ordinary felt like stealing. She hated how her hunger, every kind, all of them, made her feel like she was wrong in a language she couldn't stop hearing. "Thank you." She's sorry. "It's silly." Micah tilted his head. "What part is silly?" "Needing more." The words came out with the same shame she used to feel asking for seconds at family dinners, while her skinny cousins clinked forks like wind chimes. Her cheeks heated. She tried to fix it with a joke and failed. "Sauce, I mean." "Needing more isn't silly," he said, steady as a handrail. "It's honest." She blinked. Honest. Not greedy, not weak, not undisciplined. She felt absurdly like someone had remembered to put her real name back where it belonged. Micah didn't move to leave. He didn't crowd her either. He stood there in his rain-spotted jacket, the paper bag between them, and let the hallway hush fold around the conversation. "Long day?" he asked. "Long year," she said, then regretted the truth and tried to swallow it back. "Sorry, you're working. I shouldn't overshare with a person?" He smiled, not the kind that performs, but the kind that starts in the eyes and only then remembers to move the mouth. "I've had long years too. It's okay." Her chest loosened. She imagined opening the containers and letting the sauce pour until everything glistened. She imagined eating what she wanted, the way she wanted, while the sky kept raining and no one called it a problem. "My ex used to say sauce is just a way to hide that the food isn't good," she blurted. "Some sauce is a lie," Micah said, considering. "But some is a truth turned up louder. My mom taught me that. She makes a pepper sauce that tells you exactly who you are, if you're patient, brave, and a little bit reckless. A sauce with a personality. A sauce with a boundary," he said, amused. "It doesn't meet you halfway. It asks you to meet yourself." Cassidy laughed for real then. The sound felt like opening a new window in a stale room. She wanted to ask about his mom, about his own long year, about what it was like to carry warmth through the cold and hand it to strangers. She wanted to tell him she had been hungry for a very long time in ways that had nothing to do with food. Instead, she said, "How much do I owe for the extras?" "Nothing," he said, and she started to protest. He lifted a hand, on one condition. She raised an eyebrow. That's a dangerous sentence. That you promised to eat it the way you want it, he said simply, not the way anybody else said it should look. The rain ticked louder, like the storm was eavesdropping. Cassidy swallowed. Something unhitched in her, like a belt knot you don't realize has been strangling you until you loosen it. Okay, she said. I promise. Micah nodded, satisfaction soft as a blanket. Then we're square. She slid the chain lock free and opened the door wider, aware of herself in a way that didn't feel like apology. Her body, all of it, the soft hips, the generous waist, the curve of thigh, the full mouth that used to apologize just for existing. She didn't hide it. Not for a delivery driver, not for Rain, not for anyone. Do you? She stopped. It was ridiculous to ask. He had a route, a job, a life that didn't include standing in hallways, turning strangers into witnesses. Never mind. What? He asked. Nothing. He studied her for a heartbeat, not impatient, just present. Then he reached into another pocket and pulled out a tiny glass jar with a black lid, no label. The kind of thing you use when the big world needs a small remedy. This is my mom's pepper sauce, he said. I don't usually carry it on the job, but when I saw the weather and your name, he shrugged. Felt right. My name? It means clever, right? He said. Or vigilant? One who watches the battle and chooses when to enter. He looked unsure. I like names. I like when they get to be more than what someone else decided you should be called. Her throat tightened. Cassidy had only ever known the meaning in a shallow way. Unadventurous baby name sites and a distant aunt's letter in a shoebox. Hearing him say it made it feel like destiny was a room she could walk into if she wanted. I don't know about the battle, she said, voice unsteady, but I'm tired of losing. Then eat, he said softly. Start there. Start with letting yourself have what you asked for. Silence gathered, protective rather than awkward. She took the jar like a promise and set it on the console table inside her doorway, next to the little dish where she kept spare keys and brave thoughts. How hot is it? Hot enough to remind you you're alive, he said, smiling. But it doesn't pick a fight you didn't agree to. She imagined dipping a satay skewer and tasting fire that didn't punish. She imagined writing to him after, thank you, it made everything brighter, and stopped herself because that required him, and she had promised herself to stop building dreams on other people's scaffolding. Still, the idea glowed. She realized she was still holding the bag hostage in the doorway. I'm keeping you, she said. Go, before the storm traps you here and I have to explain to your boss how I stole the driver. My boss is my cousin, he said, amused. He thinks I drive too slow because I like watching people remember they're allowed to want things. She rolled her eyes, smiling. That a line? It's a hobby, he said. Stay warm, Cassidy. He turned toward the stairs. The hallway light caught on the curve of his cheekbone, the neat beard, the quick, sure way he moved. Something in her, reckless and small and brave, lifted its hand like a kid in class. Micah? She called softly. He looked back. Thank you, she said. Not just for the sauce. He held her gaze the way you hold a door for someone, no rush, just an open path. You're welcome. After he left, Cassidy locked the door and stood with her palm pressed flat to the wood, like she could still feel the echo of him. The apartment was quiet, except for the soft radio murmur from the next building and the rain stitching the city together. She unpacked the food on the counter, noodles gleaming, skewers lacquered with a sweet salty sheen, lettuce freckled with herbs. She set the little unlabeled jar beside the neat plastic cups like a secret weapon. She ate standing up at first, then sitting, then leaning back, the way people do when they let themselves arrive in their own body. The extra sauce changed the food the way sunlight changes a room. Nothing different, everything transformed. Her shoulders dropped, her jaw unclenched. She took a second skewer without apologizing to the empty room. When she twisted the lid off the pepper sauce, the scent rose like a memory she hadn't made yet. Smoke, citrus, something green and alive. She touched the tip of a skewer in, tasted, hissed, laughed, teared up. It didn't slap her, it invited her. Heat bloomed, then settled like a loyal dog at her feet. By the time she looked up, the window had fogged from the kitchen's breath. In the clouded glass, she saw herself not as a collection of wrongnesses, but as a woman eating a meal she wanted, with the courage to say it out loud. The thought startled a small, fierce joy out of her. Her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, thumb hovering, the last of the pepper warmth crowding her nerves with bravery. She opened the text. This is Micah. Your building's elevator stalled after I left. Safe to take the stairs if you go out. Also, if the sauce is too bold, a squeeze of lime calms it. My mom would want me to say that. Cassidy stared at the screen, then at the tiny jar, then back. Her heart did something that felt like stepping forward. Her fingers moved before she could talk herself down. It's perfect, she typed, and I think maybe I am too. Or I will be. Thanks to a stranger who said the radical thing. The typing dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Strangers don't stay strangers long if honesty's on the table, he wrote. I'm on this route again Friday. If you need more, you know. She set the phone down, the storm's drumbeat syncing with her pulse. The apartment no longer felt like a bunker. It felt like a room with a door she could open on purpose. From the hallway came a distant thud, then a voice at her door, low, unsure. Cassidy, you don't know me. I'm from 4B. Your jar rolled down here. I think it's yours. She froze, breath caught halfway between fear and laughter. She hadn't dropped the jar. Her gaze snapped to the console. The black-lidded glass was gone. Don't forget to subscribe for more intense cinematic love stories. Your click helps us make the next chapter. Cassidy's fingers hovered on the deadbolt. The second knock came, gentle but urgent, followed by a breathless voice. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm from 4B. Your little jar rolled down the hall. I didn't want it to break. She cracked the door and peered out. A woman around 50 stood there in scrubs under a raincoat, soaked hair escaping a bun. In her hands, the black-lidded glass, intact, rim smudged with pepper oil like a fingerprint. Relief rushed Cassidy so fast it left her lightheaded. Oh, thank God. How did it? Floor's uneven, the woman said, sheepish. If you set something round near the threshold, the building persuades it to travel. I'm Nora. Night shift at Mercy. I'm sorry to bang so late. It's okay. Cassidy took the jar like taking back a heartbeat. I'm Cassidy. Thank you. Nora smiled, the kind that arrives tired and still means it. It smelled like my mother's kitchen when I was a kid. Couldn't let that shatter on my watch. Do you want to taste it? Cassidy heard herself offer, then almost rescinded it. But the night felt braver since Micah's words. Needing more isn't silly. It's honest. I'm serious. I have skewers and limes. Nora hesitated. I should sleep before the next round. One bite, Cassidy said, for your mother. Something soft moved behind Nora's eyes. She laughed and nodded. For my mother. Cassidy unhooked the chain and let her in. The apartment still smelled of garlic and warm sugar. They stood at the counter like old friends and complete strangers, a kind of human math that shouldn't add up and did. Cassidy tore a skewer, dipped the edge in the pepper sauce, and handed it over with a napkin. Nora touched the sauce to her tongue and went very still. Oh, she breathed. There's citrus and smoke and patience. Cassidy tried not to grin. He said that. The driver, Micah, he said his mom's sauce asks you to meet yourself. Smart woman, Nora murmured. My mother believed good sauce tells the truth about the cook, whether they're stingy with heat or generous, whether they trust the person eating to handle what's real. They ate in companionable quiet for a minute, the pepper warmth kind, decisive, not punishing. Rain whispered against the window like someone confiding just outside. Cassidy felt the ridiculous urge to cry again and didn't fight it. You okay? Nora asked gently. Yeah. Cassidy wiped her cheek. I'm practicing being okay while being honest. I haven't done that in a while. Nora nodded like she knew the shape of that sentence. The first truth always feels like taking up too much space. Exactly, Cassidy exhaled. My ex had opinions about everything I put in my mouth. Food, words, dreams. I thought I left him, but it turns out I took him with me inside every choice. Nora set the skewer down. I took mine to work for 3 years after he moved out. Noisy ghost. He finally quieted the day I threw away the shirts he bought because they looked professional. I wore a floral scrub top with peaches that day. Peach rebellion. Stupid, right? But it felt like a parade in a grocery store. Cassidy laughed, sudden and grateful. Peach rebellion sounds perfect. They shared more sauce and small memories that felt larger than their details. Nora told her about the quiet boy in 4C who leaves sticky notes with jokes on the mailboxes. Cassidy confessed she had a dish by the door for spare keys and brave thoughts. They talked about names and staying and how hard it is to say I want out loud without flinching. Cassidy's phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number again, but this time her skin recognized it before her eyes did. She didn't need to open it to feel the room tilt. Her ex's cadence sat inside her nerves like a metronome she hadn't turned off. "What's wrong?" Nora asked. Cassidy unlocked the screen with a hand that wasn't as steady as she wished. The text read, "Heard you're still in the building. We need to talk. I still have the spare. Don't make this difficult." A second message arrived as she read, "You always overdo the sauce." Her stomach contracted into the old knot, not because of the words themselves, which were bland as tap water, but because of the way they carried his voice, claiming, measuring, arranging the furniture of her choices. Nora saw her face and understood enough. "Is he downstairs?" she asked, voice low. "I don't know. He likes to bluff, but he had the spare for emergencies and never returned it." Cassidy stared at the door as if it might answer. "I meant to change the lock." "You can still mean it and do it tomorrow," Nora said. "Tonight you can barricade and breathe." Cassidy laughed, shaky. "Barricade and breathe. Sounds like a precision drill." "It's nurse-tested." Nora's smile held steel. "And if he comes to the door, you do not open it. You're allowed to take up space and say no." Cassidy nodded and set her phone face down like laying a card in a game she refused to play. The pepper heat steadied her, a small loyalty radiating outward. She pulled the chain lock back into place, slid a chair under the knob because rituals sometimes matter as much as hardware. "Thank you for staying a minute," she said. "Thank you for the bite," Nora replied. She touched Cassidy's shoulder, a brief squeeze that said, "You are here. If you need anything, knock loud. I've got a mean left hook and a fiercer phone tree." After Nora left, Cassidy stood alone with the rain and the chair under the door and the small glass jar that had taken a tour of the hallway and returned unbroken. Her phone buzzed again. She considered ignoring it. She didn't. She opened Micah's thread, not the other one, and typed, "The source tried to run away. Building's uneven. My neighbor saved it. Also, my ex texted. I hate how my body remembers him." The dots appeared, then his reply. "Uneven floors will teach you what you can trust. Put the jar in a shallow bowl so it stays where you want it. About the other thing, can I offer a script?" "Go ahead. You can copy-paste or just say it to the door if it helps." He wrote, "This is my home. You don't have permission to enter. Return my key under the mat and leave. If you don't, I'll call security and the police." A beat. You don't owe him softness in the doorway. You owe yourself safety in your own kitchen. Cassidy stared at the words until they steadied inside her like a level settling its bubble between lines. "Thank you," she wrote. "I keep thinking I need the perfect version. Maybe I just need a true one." "True beats perfect every time," he sent back. "Also, lime calms the heat if your heart's already working overtime." She smiled despite herself, cut a wedge and squeezed. The sauce brightened without losing its voice. She ate another bite and felt the tiny, mighty courage of nourishment chosen. A key turned in the hall, not hers, not yet at her door, someone else's life proceeding. Then the quick staccato of footsteps, then a pause. The silence on the other side of wood felt like someone thinking about the next move. Cassidy lifted the phone and with hands steady enough typed her script into a note, reading it out loud once, twice, until her mouth knew it. Another buzz. Her ex again. "Open up. Don't be dramatic. I can smell that junk from the hall. You're better than this." Her anger flared clean, not the self-hurting kind, but the boundary-drawing kind. She placed the pepper jar in a shallow dish as instructed, and felt absurdly proud that it didn't wiggle. She took one breath in, one breath out, and stepped closer to the door. "Cass?" His voice, muffled by wood but exact. "Open the door." "This is my home," she said, strong enough to surprise herself. The words cut clean through the thickness between them. "You don't have permission to enter. Return my key under the mat and leave. If you don't, I'll call security and the police." A beat of shocked quiet, then a laugh with no humour in it. "Who taught you that little speech?" "I did," she said, "and a stranger who reminded me I'm allowed to want what I want." He rattled the knob. The chair under it held. "You're being ridiculous," he said. "Remember who helped you?" "I do," she said. "That's why I'm changing the lock tomorrow." A sharp exhale. Then the soft scuff of movement. A metallic chink against the door, key on concrete. Footsteps backing away. She didn't breathe until she heard the elevators groan and doors split, then close, then descend. She slid the chair away, opened the door just enough to see the key lying there like a shed skin. She picked it up with 2 fingers and dropped it into the little dish. Brave thoughts clinked. Her phone buzzed one more time. Micah. Still with you. Floors level out the farther you move from the door. Try the table. She laughed, sudden and grateful again. Trying the table. She carried the jar to the small round table by the window and set it in the shallow dish. Then next to it her glass of water with a slice of lime. The rain had eased to a fine silver fall. Down on the street, a man in a navy cap jogged to a car, jumped in and pulled away. It might have been anyone. It might have been him. A soft knock. She stiffened, then relaxed at the timing. 2 quick, 1 slow. Not his rhythm. Cassidy? Nora's voice lower now. You okay? Cassidy opened the door to a wedge. He left the key. Good. Nora exhaled like she'd been holding it for both of them. If you hear anything else, knock loud. I will. Back at the table, Cassidy took another bite, then another. The kind of eating that feels like telling the truth in present tense. The jar stayed put. The storm softened. Her breath loosened into something she recognized as her own. Her phone lit up again. A new text from an unsaved number with a photo attached. She tapped it before she could talk herself out of it. It was a hand, brown, steady, holding a tiny fresh jar with a black lid and a note taped to it. In neat block letters, for Cassidy. Don't apologize to your tongue. The caption read, Friday, same route. If you want more, I can ask my mom to make an extra batch. A sound rose in her chest. Half laugh, half something else. She typed, yes, please. And tell her, thank you for lending me a voice tonight. She hit send, rested her palm on the table beside the jar, and watched the city lights thread themselves between raindrops like something mending. She didn't hear the elevator open again. She didn't see the shadow stop outside her door. The shadow paused, the peephole stayed dark. Cassidy listened so hard her ears hurt. Then, 3 knuckles, soft as a question. She slid the chair away, set her palm on the door, and made herself breathe. Who is it? Building security, a man said, low and careful. Name's Luis. Your neighbour from 4B called. You okay in there? Relief loosened her shoulders. She cracked the door with the chain still on. A stocky man in a black windbreaker stood in the hall, rain freckles drying on his sleeves. His posture was professional, but his eyes were the kind you trust to hand you bad news gently. I'm okay, she said. He left. Luis nodded like he'd been hoping to hear that. Nora filled me in. She also texted me a photo of the key on your mat. Woman's faster than our lobby cams. He held up a metal bar with rubber feet. I can't change locks tonight, but I can set you up with a door jammer till morning. You'll call management at 8. I'll make sure they bump you to the top. You don't open for anybody you didn't invite. Sound good? Tears arrived without asking permission. Sounds perfect. He crouched, slid the bar into place beneath the knob and rocked it to test the hold. This baby's ugly but stubborn, he said. I respect ugly and stubborn. Cassidy laughed wetly. Me too. He stood and hesitated, then lowered his voice. One more thing. A driver called the front desk, said he'd delivered to a tenant named Cassidy and saw a man hanging around the stairwell who gave him a bad feeling. Asked us to keep an eye on the floor. Luis's mouth tipped, almost smiling. We don't usually get courtesy heads-ups from delivery routes. Heat moved through her, part embarrassment, part astonished gratitude. Micah, she said, because of course it had been. Of course he'd watched out without making it about himself. Thank you for telling me. Luis tapped the brim of his cap. Sleep. When the sun's up, get your cylinder changed. If he shows again, call me first, cop second. Sometimes a uniform knocks sense back into people before paperwork does. After he left, the apartment felt different. Still hers, but newly defended. The door bar added an honest, unpretty line to the room, the way a cast does. Here is where the healing happens, and we're not pretending it's invisible. Cassidy washed the pepper jar and set it to dry. She typed 2 texts, thank you, for the words, for the script, for calling the building to Micah, and to Nora he left the key. Luis added a door bar. I'm okay. Also, Peach Rebellion forever. Micah answered first. Glad you're safe. I'll sleep better now. She stared at that sentence. No one had owned sleep on her behalf in a long time, not in a way that felt like care instead of control. The rain thinned to a hush. Cassidy crawled into bed and lay on her side facing the door like a lighthouse faces the sea. She slept with the jar's clean glass drying on the rack, with lime on her breath and a sentence tucked under her ribs. Needing more isn't silly. It's honest. Morning opened the blinds with pale hands. Nora knocked a date on the dot with coffee and a pastry that looked like a tide that had curled and frozen mid-surge. For a victorious breakfast, she said. Her scrub top had peaches on it, plump and unashamed. The locksmith arrived at 10 with a van that smelled like metal and hand soap. He swapped the cylinder, drilled the old habit out of the door, and handed Cassidy a pair of fresh keys on a blue tag. She dropped the original into the spare keys and brave thoughts dish, then placed one new key beside it and held the other against her palm until the cool warmed. When the locksmith left, she stood in the doorway, open, then closed, then open again, practicing a muscle memory that had always belonged to someone else. It was hers now. The threshold was a line she could draw and erase, not a line that drew her. At lunch, she took the pepper jar off the rack and dried it by hand, though it didn't need it, a small ceremony. She wrote a note on a torn-out recipe card. Your sauce taught me a sentence last night. Thank you. See. She folded the paper and tucked it under the lid like a secret between glass and heat. That evening, the sky cleared. The city gleamed like it had been rinsed and wiped, streaks and all. Cassidy didn't want to wait until Friday to be brave, but courage doesn't have to race to count. She gave herself a small assignment. Go downstairs and stand outside for 5 minutes without making yourself small. The air smelled like wet pavement and someone's laundry. She leaned against the stoop railing, felt the weight of her body on the iron, and didn't flinch from it. A kid on a scooter scraped by. The man who ran the bodega waved with 2 fingers and a grin that said he'd seen it all and liked most of it. Across the street, a woman kissed a dog on the head like an apology for going inside without him. 5 minutes turned to 10, then 15. When she climbed back up, she left the door bar in the umbrella stand and smiled at it like an old ally. You did your job. Friday came with a blue sky that meant it, a light wind that made everything look like a film with too much production value. Cassidy cleaned without flaying, dressed without apology, a black dress that skimmed rather than hid, a denim jacket soft as a yes. She ordered from the same restaurant and added a note in the app. Extra sauce, extra lime, please. And if Micah's on the route, tell him the jar would love to come home. She laughed at herself for writing like that, then didn't edit it. Honest beat perfect. She set the shallow dish on the table, ready to hold the little glass when the building decided to be persuasive again. At 7, footsteps on the stairs, a pause, a knock that had learned her rhythm. 1, 2, 1. She opened the door wider than before. Micah stood there in the navy cap, jacket zipped halfway, paper bag steaming. His smile began in his eyes again. Delivery for Cassidy, he said, then his gaze flicked to the lock. Nice cylinder. She touched the new brass like it might purr. Thank you for the civic engagement. He shrugged. I'll always choose to be the guy who overdoes the caution. Me too. She held out the washed jar and the folded note, for your mom. He took it with a carefulness that felt like a blessing extended to the object and the person who held it last. She'll like that, he said. She thinks jars are journals. She'll sniff it and know the week. Then she'll smell fear, lime, and victory, Cassidy said, in that order. He laughed, low and genuine, then lifted a small brown bag from his other hand. We added an extra cup of peanut sauce and a tiny container of the pepper, the one we're allowed to share with customers. The jar version is the family one. She glanced at the bag, then at him. Will you take 5 minutes off the clock? There's a stoop with a bench and a sky auditioning for a commercial. I owe you... Not a tip, not money. A sentence back. He checked his watch, then the street, a driver's life measured in time and traffic. I can take 5, he said, but I won't sit in your apartment while I'm working. Boundary. Stoop, she agreed. Public, sky, passing dogs. They sat on the front steps like kids who'd grown into their bodies without losing their capacity to be astonished by weather. She handed him a paper cup with water. He set his cap on his knee. For a minute they watched the block unfold, a cyclist scolding a pothole, a couple arguing with tenderness, a bus sighing itself empty then full. My sentence, Cassidy said finally, is a thank you disguised as a story. Last night I said, "This is my home," out loud, and it didn't feel like a line from a TV show. It felt like a thing I'd built with my own tongue. Micah's face softened into that listening that steadies everything. That's a big build. I thought I was silly for needing more. Food, room, love, quiet. You said it was honest. I didn't know how much I needed someone to give me permission I already had. She met his eyes. You changed something I didn't believe could be changed with a sentence. He exhaled. My mom says sometimes the lock's ready and all it needs is a key. Words are good at being keys. They sat with that a moment. The light turned honey thick on the brick. Somewhere a saxophone tried to remember a melody and half succeeded, which was better. What about you? She asked. Your long year. What did you need more of? He was quiet, then used the same measured honesty he'd offered her. My dad died in April, he said. I thought grief would be loud and dramatic. Turns out it's small and daily. I needed more room to be sad without feeling like I was failing at being useful. I'm sorry, Cassidy said, simple and whole. What helped? Pepper sauce, he said, and the smile this time had ache in it. And people who didn't try to fix my face when it fell. He looked at her, and telling the truth in present tense. I am sad lands different than I was sad. She nodded. I am brave lands different than I will be. You are brave, he said. No sermon, no pep talk, just a statement placed on the stoop between them, like a jar set gently in a dish so it won't roll. And you are not too much. You are not a portion. You're a whole meal. The words hit her the way the first clean swallow of cold water hits after hours of thirst. Shock, relief, something like laughter breaking open. She put her hand over her mouth and let herself feel it all. The old shame leaving like smoke out a window, the new tenderness toward her own hungers arriving like a friend. Okay, she said, tears and joy tripping over each other. Okay. A delivery van honked 2 streets over. Micah glanced at his watch and stood. I have to go make New York less hungry. Good luck, she said. It's famously unsatisfied. At least it's honest about it. He put his cap back on, then hesitated. I don't hit on customers, it makes work messy, but I also don't pretend when something matters. He held her gaze, offered the thing instead of pushing it. If you ever want to sit on this stoop again off the clock, or meet at the park to trade sentences that tidy nothing and tell the truth, call me. He slid a small card across the bench. A name, a number, a tiny drawn pepper with a crown. Cassidy took it like you take a key that opens a door you didn't know you owned. I'll call, she said, to trade sentences. He stepped down from the stoop, then looked back. Oh, and if the saucer feels like too much again, remember the trick. Lime calms it, she said, or you can just add more noodles. His grin tipped. Sometimes the answer isn't less. Sometimes it's more of the good thing. After he left, Cassidy sat with the evening and the card, and the way the word more had stopped sounding like a crime and started sounding like a compass. She went upstairs, set the fresh containers on the table, and poured as if sunlight was something you could spoon. She ate the way people do when they belong to their bodies. Between bites, she wrote a new label for the dish by the door. Keys. Brave thoughts. Honest hunger. She tucked Micah's card beneath the glass jar's shadow and stood there a moment, watching how it didn't try to roll away. When the first star clawed its way through the city's brightness, her phone lit up. Mom says tell Cassidy she's proud of her. She says sometimes the extra sauce is what makes dinner feel like a home. Cassidy typed, tell her I needed to hear that. Tell her I'm learning how to cook my life louder. Outside, a breeze turned the street into a slow river. Inside, a woman poured, tasted, breathed, and believed herself. The door had a new lock, the room had a new name, and the sentence that changed everything stayed where she could reach it whenever she needed more.